Folks, it is Monday, and that means another episode of Hot Topics right here on pubsportsradio.com. He's Jeff Nadeau. I'm Donnie Seymour. And look, this is going to come up a lot until we actually get some fans in the stands and sports underway, Jeff. And we're talking about the cancellation of games now internationally with the NFL. No longer going to be playing in London, not going to be playing in Mexico, more centered on getting things underway back in the United States. But I do have to bring up this topic that we can talk of awful, Jeff. We sit here as sports fans, right? I want to see anything on TV. I don't care if there's a fan in the stand or not. But how about this, Jeff? Only 65% of the people surveyed in the ESPN survey said, yeah, no fans in the stands. We could wait on it. That means 35% of the people, Jeff, said, if there's no fans in the stands, I don't even want it on TV. Come on now.
Yeah, I got to wonder about the validity of that. I don't listen. I'm guessing they only sent it to sports fans, right?
It just says here, yes, it actually says sports fans aged 18 or older. So not like, 16 or 15-year-olds, regular folk like me and you, Jeff, and 35% of the people said, you know what, let's hold off until fans can watch live.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I spend time occasionally watching old stuff, like old highlights and stuff. And I was watching, I don't know why I watched this, but Donnie, have you ever seen Mike Piazza, his Hall of Fame speech? Have you ever seen that?
No, not the speech directly, no.
Okay, it's arguably one of the great Hall of Fame speeches ever. And so I went down this Mike Piazza rabbit hole. I don't know why, but so I was watching a video of when Mike Piazza hit a home run at Shea Stadium after 9/11, and I was trying to envision that happening without fans. And I was looking at it and I was saying, wow, it's definitely going to take time to get used to. It's going to be like that Baltimore Oriole game where they didn't have fans and it was weirdly quiet and that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't understand how 35% of people are out there that like sports that don't want it to be back, even if it's safe enough to come back. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't. Again, Donnie, anymore, I mean, you hear news and it's just, it just kind of goes out one ear to the other. You just don't even pay any attention. And that's, I think, what's so disturbing about news is, it seems like the news we actually need to hear, it seems like it doesn't really get heard a lot of the time. But yeah, I don't necessarily believe that. As far as the NFL with international games, I think that's a plus. I could care less if the NFL goes to London or whatever. You've discussed that you felt it was unfair to teams, and I think you're right. I think certain teams get screwed with it. I still think whether teams are in London or not or go over there, I still think fans will watch it and listen to it and pay attention to it. So you can't go to London for a couple of years. Big deal. I'm the only people getting rich out that are the NFL. I know me and you, Donnie, whether the games, it actually hurts me because a lot of the time I'm not up in time to watch it. So I hate like different change. Just put it at 1 and 4 and that's it. But yeah, I think, Donnie, you're seeing, though, with a lot of changes, whether they're related to sports or not. We talked about this on the show before. I'm actually for a lot of these changes personally. I don't like people right next to me in restaurants. I like that. I like the fact that if I fly, I mean, flying is brutal as it is, Donnie.
Oh, yes.
If they can do anything to fix flying, I'm all for it. So if that means we don't have anyone in the middle seat, that's great. And look, people will whine and complain, well, it's going to be more expensive. Look, if you go on a vacation, I hate to tell you, if you're whining about prices going up $50 or whatever it's going to be, you shouldn't be going on vacation. Those are the same people that whine and complain because they want gas that's 5 cents cheaper across town and they go get it. Look, at the end of the day, you can't script on stuff. Donnie, you hear people nowadays, well, meat's going to be way more expensive. Listen, this shit you just don't complain about. Food prices are one of them. Just get it. If you like meat, you get it. If you don't like meat, don't eat it. I think a lot of these changes are welcome. I think cubicles are welcome, Donnie. I don't know about you, but if I worked in an office, I would prefer cubicles. I don't want people up in my shit all the time. I need a little space between them. I like that. So I think a lot of these changes are good. And the NFL international thing, I think is good as well.
No, it's interesting too. You talk about flights. I'd be more than happy to pay an extra $50 if it was just like, you usually have the 3 seats there. If there's just 2 and you got extra room and a partition in the middle so the person next to you wasn't on you, that's a win-win. Also talking about the NFL going overseas, I laugh at these because Shad Khan was going to have what, Jeff, 85,000 people to New Wembley or Tottenham, wherever they're going to host these at, a full sold-out crowd. Now he's going to have his stank Jacksonville team back in Jacksonville with like 30,000 people or less in that. So I'm actually glad he ends up getting stuck with that. Now, let's talk a little bit about
Donnie,
this weekend. Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
Real quick, with that same point there, you mentioned about flights. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let's say you go to Vegas and the flight's $477 round trip. Okay, you leave at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yep.
Okay, or whatever, and then you have a flight that's $417. You leave at 5:35 a.m.
Mhm.
What flight are you more likely to take?
Me, I'm actually more likely to take the later flight, man.
Of course you are. It's a little bit more money, but we actually will pay $60 more just so we don't have to wake up early.
Correct.
So if you're really whining about that, like, just think about what you're whining about at the end of the day. If you're going on vacation, you're going to spend money. That's what happens. Don't go on vacation if you don't want to spend money. But yeah, that's don't worry about prices going up. It's cost of doing business.
That's by far the best one there. Jeff, talk about this Saturday coming back. Horse racing is back, but we have a huge event, UFC 249. Yep, UFC 249. Now, here's the key. It's in Jacksonville. There's nobody there. But this could be a template to other sporting events saying, we got to get back. And here's what I'm rooting for, because I've never been a UFC guy, more of a boxing guy, even if I am a boxing guy. But I got to tell you, I am really rooting for Dana White in the UFC, because if this comes off big with massive pay-per-view numbers, it makes sense. It was safe, and it went off without a hitch. Other sports leagues got to look at this and be like, dude, we got to get back. We can get back, and we got to get back. What do you think?
Yeah, and again, this is pay-per-view or no, Donnie?
It's prelims are on ESPN, pay-per-view for the main card, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'll be interested to see what the views are, because I'm going to tell you right now, the UFC needs to find people like me and say, what can we get you to do to watch this? Because I got to be honest, I'm not paying to watch this. I've
never bought a UFC pay-per-view. Now, I've gone to other people's house when, like, the big fights will come on, and every once in a while, like Conor McGregor, but I've never sat in my house, Jeff, and say, you know what? I have to watch this. So I'm in the same boat as you.
Right. I think it'll be viscerally enjoyed, though, by a lot of people, and I think the numbers will be incredibly high. And I think a lot of the time now, we've talked about this and why these sports leagues don't want to start. It's not a fact that they don't want to start. They are worried about failing, but they have to stop worrying about failing. The NFL draft showed us that. How many times, Donnie, did we hear about there's going to be tech issues?
So disrespectful.
Yeah, this is disrespectful to do. Think if we would have listened to people like Adam Schefter, we would still be under our bed with our blanket on crying. Like, someone just got to do it. And credit to Dana White, who I've said is the best commissioner of any sport.
Puts it on his shoulders. Puts the entire sport on his shoulders.
And he's tried everything to make it happen. He doesn't. You ever notice, Donnie, with some of these sports, it's the biggest excuse as to why we can't do this.
Yes.
Why don't you figure out a way we can do this? And that's why I think the MLB they seem to be pretty positive in thinking that we can bring this back. I've already accepted, Donnie, and I know people don't want to hear this. I don't think the NBA is going to come back. I thought the Disney World idea was a bang-up idea. Yeah. Now we're all of a sudden hearing that, they're worried about the older coaches, and they're worried about this and that. So teams don't want to fail. Organizations don't want to fail. But credit to Dana White for finding a way, and he's never stopped. I mean, he was willing to go and get an island. He was willing to do this. And the only reason he didn't get the fight the first time a couple of weeks ago is because the state of California shimmied their way in. But you got to say credit to guys like Ron DeSantis who, are realizing and figuring out that this virus hasn't been as bad as people thought it would be. And he's deciding to say, you know what, do it.
No, you're exactly right on the whole premises there. You can take a look at UFC. And let's also keep in mind, I think the whole generalization comes back, Jeff, as we like to poke holes out of, well, if one person gets it. Last time I, checked in, if you're an NBA player and Adam Silver comes out and says, we're going to continue the rest of the regular season, or let's just say we're not going to do that and we're just going to go to the playoffs. You have a right, and I'm sure he would be a progressive owner and say, if you're not comfortable with coming back and playing, we're not going to hold it against you. But if you have a 15-man roster and you guys want to give it a go and one guy sits out, we're not going to hold back. Same thing with the UFC, Jeff. Last time I checked, Dana White's not calling up a person in UFC saying, you know what? If you don't fight, you're going to jail for 5 years. This is upon people's will. And if you give them an option to say, hey, you know what? You can play if you don't sit out. Let's see how many people sit out, and let's see how many people actually want to come back and play in this.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you look at a guy like Khabib Nurmagomedov. I mean, he's a guy that, would have made a huge payday on this thing. He decided didn't want to do it, didn't want to leave, and he may not even be able to leave, and it ended up working out. But, yeah, there has to be stipulations and rules in that, Donnie, if someone, let's say on the Toronto Blue Jays gets coronavirus, we don't shut down, okay? Right. We test everybody. We make sure no one else has it. We move that person out. We move someone else in. There's got to be those stipulations, because if you go into it with just we'll see what happens when it happens, it's inevitable. It will happen, okay? people get the flu, people get this, people get that. We can't have a stipulation where that's not involved, because if it's not involved, it will be inevitable and we'll never get started again.
No, and you're right, because even taking a look at different strains, just say the common flu, Jeff. Can you imagine if we had testing for the common flu, where if you had the flu, you couldn't go to school or you couldn't go to work? We would shut down as a country if you just tested for the flu and didn't allow people to move around.
The problem that we have, and the problem that I said is the biggest issue in the entire coronavirus is we've set the precedent that it must be something you cannot interact with anybody. Right. So if somebody gets the flu in the NBA, Donnie, you notice they're only out a game or two because they
send them home for a couple days.
Yeah.
Yep.
With coronavirus, we've set the precedent that it's 14 days, no matter what. So if you don't have symptoms, it doesn't matter. You still can't interact with anybody else. And that's where this is different. And that's where, unfortunately, we as a human people have set this differently than what the flu is. I think if you ask any epidemiologist or any scientist, this is a similar virus to a flu type of. It's a novel viral virus. That's what it is. But we've set the precedent that no matter, even if you're asymptomatic or you didn't even show signs. I mean, in retrospect, Donnie, it could even be better, because with the flu, you always have symptoms. Correct. I don't know anyone that's asymptomatic with the flu.
Yeah.
90% of the people that get this disease may not even know they have it. So, that's where we have a difference here. And that's why if you go on that 14-day DL, you're going to be on it 14 days. But you're going to come back. And that's where we need to get as a group, where the stipulation is if you get it, you go out and somebody else comes back in.
Level-headed theories here by Jeff and Donnie. It's always what we give here, right? Jeff Radio on Hot Topic with pubsportsradio.com. We'll be back each and every day, Monday through Friday, with another Hot Topic. We'll do it again tomorrow, Jeff. But UFC is on deck this weekend. Yeah. I am cheering for it, and hopefully we can get back to some normalcy here.
What's the price?
Sports.
Do you know?
I don't know, but remember I think it's still ESPN Plus. So remember, hey, I got ESPN Plus. I can check in.
I got to tell you,
no, it's still going to be 60 bones.
I'm getting to the point where, I'll probably bet it. I mean, I'll probably do some research on it or tell some people, and I'll end up playing it. But Donnie, I will say on Pub Search Radio, I'm putting out something right now. I know it's we don't know when it'll happen or if it will happen, but I'm doing some win total stuff in college football. I'm already starting to look ahead. I'm just trying to get some normalcy in my life. So check that out. And we'll see where the world takes us. But we will be back tomorrow here on Hot Topics. Thanks for watching.